Meditation Simple Steps Introduction Meditation is a psychological exercise that includes unwinding, concentration, and mindfulness. Contemplation is to the psyche what actual practice is to the body. The training is usually done separately, in a still situated position, and with eyes shut. What is the meaning of reflection in psychology? In psychology, reflection is characterized as a group of mental preparing rehearses that are intended to acclimate the professional with explicit sorts of mental cycles. Reflection is polished in one of three modes: fixation, zeroing in consideration on a solitary item, interior or outer, centered consideration. Reflection, perception, focusing on whatever is dominating as far as you can tell right now, without permitting the consideration regarding stall out on something specific, open observing. Contemplation, mindfulness, permitting attention to stay present, undistracted, and not locked in, with one or the other centering or noticing. The history of meditation started to become really mainstream around the turn of the millennium, but few people are aware of how old and broad this art really is, and how it got developed in different parts of the world. In this short essay, I'll attempt to give a general map of the history of meditation, and its many contemplative traditions. The information in this article was collected from my years of study in different traditions. Other than that, it's not easy to find this information laid out like this, as each tradition tends to focus only on its own history, and offers just one piece of the puzzle. This essay presents an overview of the history of meditation in Buddhism, yoga, Christianity, and other traditions. Toward the end, you will also find information on the history of meditation in the West. Understanding the bigger picture and origins of meditation will allow you to discover which tradition or which type of meditation you would like to explore. 1. Cave yogis and Vedic sages. Where did contemplation come from? Contemplation began in India, a tranquil time some time ago. The most seasoned reported proof of the act of contemplation is divider expressions in the Indian subcontinent from around 5000 to 3500 BCE, showing individuals situated in thoughtful stances with half-shut eyes. The most established composed notice of reflection is from 1500 BCE in the Vedas. That is the point at which the Vedas came to paper, yet it should be perceived that the Vedas had been retained and passed down as an oral custom for quite a long time, sometimes before they were at last recorded. For example, the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, f. 14th century BCE, records almost 70 ages of contemplation masters and understudies that had existed up to that point. During this antiquated time, reflection was training for strict individuals and meandering monks, who, through it, looked to rise above the impediments of human existence. Associate with general powers, represented as divinities, and associate with the supernatural reality, called Brahman in the Vedas. The Hindu practice of reflection incorporates both the yogis pondering in caves, just as the sages, rishis, of the Vedic culture. It is the most established contemplation custom on earth, still alive and flourishing. It has many genealogies and procedures. Doubtlessly the principal contemplation strategy to be developed, found was either mantra reflection or looking, although we can't know without a doubt. The advanced yoga development, which stresses stances and breathing activities, is a variation of only one of these. Many yogic schools, the Hatha Yoga school. As a rule, yoga is an insight custom whose center is contemplation and otherworldly turn of events, not an arrangement of stretches and breathing practices. 2. The Buddha in the 6th century BCE, Siddhartha Gautama deserted his regal life as a sovereign and achieved enlightenment. In this cycle, he took in contemplation and theory from the best yogis he could find in his locale. Inevitably, disappointed with what he realized, he wandered from that custom and made his technique. He accomplished the enlightenment he looked for, and turned into the Buddha. He then, at that point, spent the following many years of his life showing contemplation and otherworldly arousing to a considerable number of individuals. Throughout the following few centuries, Buddhism spread all over Asia, and a wide range of ancestries was shaped. These days, the Buddhist styles of contemplation, vipassana, samatha, loving-kindness, and walking meditation, are maybe the most generally rehearsed types of reflection in the West. 3. Jainism, Taoism, Confucianism in the equivalent, brilliant century. As the Buddha, 3 different religions were conceived, all with their ways of dealing with contemplation. They are Jainism in India, established by Mahavira, Taoism in China, established by Lao Tzu, Confucianism in China, established by Confucius. Jainism is an exceptionally plain custom that places extraordinary accentuation on self-cleansing, self-control, thought, and peacefulness. The Jain reflection procedures include mantra reiteration, looking, breath, mindfulness, representations, and self-request. Taoism accentuates association with Tao, or infinite life, nature. Confucianism zeroes in addition to profound quality and local area life. Reflection was created in this practice hundreds of years after the fact, emphasizing self-thought and personal growth. It is called Jing Zuo. These practices are still alive today, albeit not as famous outside their nations of origin as Buddhism and yoga are. 4. Greek philosophers. The Greek scholars, somewhat under the exuberant impact of sages and yogis of India, fostered their adaptation of contemplation. Such social impact was upgraded by Alexander the Great's tactical endeavors of India, 327 to 325 BCE, which got the two societies in contact. Greek rationalists rehearsed navel-looking, omphaloskepsis, as a guide to philosophical thought. Later on, rationalists Philo of Alexandria and Plotinus additionally created reflection procedures, particularly including focus. The impact of Eastern ideas and scrutinizing customs on the West was sliced once Christianity started to rule Europe, and for a long time. So it was uniquely in the 20th century that the discourse East-West began to thrive once more. 5. Christian mysticism. Christian spiritualists fostered their type of reflection, for the most part, dependent on the redundancy of a strict word or state and the quiet thought of God. One type of Christian contemplation is called Jesus prayer, which was created between the 10th and 14th hundreds of years in Greece, in the hesychasm Christian practice. Students of history estimate that this gathering of Christians may have had contact with the Sufis and the Indians, which is the place where the impact of reflection may have come from. One more structure is found in the Eastern Christian organization, additionally includes redundancy of an expression, and is a lot more established than hesychasm. 6. Harmony. Buddhism. Harmony is a famous school of Buddhism established by the Indian, Persian priest Bodhidharma, who made a trip to China to educate reflection in the 8th century. Starting there, his lessons formed into the ancestry of Chan in China, being subsequently traded into Korean, Seon, Japan, Zen, and Vietnam, Thien. These are referred to by and large as harmony. There is a substantial impact of Taoism and Chinese culture in these ancestries, which somewhat clarifies the uniqueness of Zen corresponding to other Buddhist practices. These days the many sorts of zazen the contemplation method of Japanese Zen, are as yet famous types of reflection in the West. A few genealogies of Zen likewise underline the act of koans as a type of contemplation. 7. Sufism. The practice of the Sufis, the spiritualists of Islam, goes to the extent that 1,400 years back, under some impact of Indian thoughtful customs, Sufism created contemplation rehearses dependent on breathing, mantra, and looking the center of their practices as interfacing with God, Allah. But, unfortunately, they also fostered their notorious Sufi spinning, which can be found in Turkey today. 8. Jewish meditation. The obscure Jewish custom of Kabbalah, mainly affected by Abraham Abulafia, 1240–1291, and some later contemplatives, likewise fostered its types of reflection. These are generally founded on the profound examination of philosophical standards, names of God, images, supplications, and the tree of life. 9. Present-day Western world. During the 1700s, a few texts of the Eastern way of thinking started to be converted into European dialects, particularly the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Buddhist sutras. By the 18th century, the investigation of Buddhism in the West was a theme for educated people, with the thinker Schopenhauer being maybe one of its most renowned admirers. In the U.S., significant figures of transcendentalist development, like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, were likewise admirers of the goals of the Eastern way of thinking and otherworldliness. Yoga and contemplation were acquainted with the United States from the get-go in the 20th century by Swami Vivekananda. His alluring and pragmatist show at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, 1893, set off a significant interest in Americans in Eastern thinking and otherworldliness. It was additionally generally welcomed by the transcendentalist development in the United States, particularly by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, because of his impact. In the 20th century, a few popular Indian otherworldly instructors moved to the USA, including Paramahansa Yogananda, Self-Realization Fellowship, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, showing Transcendental Meditation, and Swami Rama, Himalayan Institute. In like manner, agents of a few schools of Buddhism advanced toward instruction in the West, the fundamental ones being Zen, Theravada, and Tibetan Buddhism. The more significant part of these Eastern experts had Western followers as the light carrier of their lessons. With this, the act of contemplation started to be instructed in a more westernized manner, regularly rearranged and decoupled from its profound setting. Logical investigations began to arise, and individuals understood that reflection isn't just for those looking for otherworldly edification. 10. The era of meditation and science as indicated by the researcher George Feuerstein, the primary piece of logical exploration on contemplation occurred in 1936, and the first one utilizing the EEG was in 1955. The main assortment of logical examinations on reflection was made in 1977 by James Funderburk, an understudy of Swami Rama of the Himalayan International Institute of Yoga Science. Swami Rama was one of the primary yogis to be contemplated by Western researchers. During the 1960s, he was analyzed by researchers at the Menninger Clinic, where he showed his capacity to intentionally control his substantial cycles, for example, heartbeat, pulse, and internal heat level, which science had up to that point considered being compulsory. In addition to other things, he illustrated changing his pulse while sitting still to 300 thumps each moment for 16 seconds, and afterward inside a couple of moments preventing his heart from siphoning blood for specific seconds. He is creating diverse skin temperatures on neighboring sides of his hand by intentionally expanding and getting his veins with his brain. We deliver alpha, delta, theta, and gamma mind waves on request. He remained utterly aware of his current circumstance while his mind was in profound rest. These and different exhibits set off an interest in mainstream researchers to review the impacts of reflection in the body. Thus, over the following 50 years, the number of logical investigations on contemplation expanded extensively, thus their quality progressed. Professionals of different practices, especially Zen priests and Tibetan lamas, were additionally contemplated and gave mind-over-body exhibits. One more trailblazer in this interaction was Dr. Herbert Benson, who examined the adequacy of reflection through his examination at Harvard University in the mid-1970s. Before that time, contemplation was thought to be a strict practice and subsequently unsuitable for medical services. However, with his commitment, this started to change.